Welcome back to round two. I'm
Pew, pew, pew.
again with Dr. Dale. Excited
Hi, Derek.
we had a good first episode, and it was a lot of fun digging into Dale's experience. And we were talking a little bit later just about how I think it's such a good story to hear because it's not the typical story that you hear of an undergrad student, dental student, becoming a dentist. We probably a lot of us know some of the students that had to kind of claw their way through, but kind of hearing your whole story chronologically was really great. So
Yeah.
today we'll get into part two, which is we kind of worked through everything up to your associate position, you kind of deciding, okay, I'm going to give myself a 2 year cap on the time to associate before entering ownership. So again, I guess start where you want. I think maybe the probably what would make sense is you could talk a little bit about when did you start looking at practices and where and what was that process like?
Yeah. So, my husband and I, when we became parents and we had a toddler in Minnesota, specifically in Minneapolis, we were like, we just really realized the friction between like the value system in the Midwest. And that's when we really started thinking, like, okay, we love the sun in Denver. But one thing we did not love about Denver specifically was we were spending every weekend like 3 hours driving into the mountains just to drive back. And we had a lot of conversations about like what kind of life do we really want to live? And we narrowed it in and we said wherever we want to be doing, if that's skiing or being at the beach, whatever we decide, or at a lake, whatever it is we decide is our path, we're gonna go live there and be there and do it every day. Like we don't want it to be like this big effort to go and experience the things we want to experience. So now we have our daughter. I graduate dental school. I have my C-section planned for my son. We graduate on Friday. My son's being born on Monday. And like finally I think my husband and I kind of are like, okay, we're free from dental school. Like the world is our oyster. We know we're leaving Minneapolis. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And sun was always on the top of our priority list. But as I said, like, so was lifestyle. We weren't just going to like go somewhere for sun for no reason. So I started messaging actually like realtors on Instagram, which is like kind of funny. They'd post a cool house and I'd be like, hey, where is this? Like, is this a good place to raise kids? And they'd be like, no, that's why it's so cheap. You cannot buy that house. And I said, okay, well, here's what we're looking for. We want to be in a beach town that is beachy. We want great public schools because I didn't want to spend the money on private school. And we want to be able to walk a lot. In fact, I want to be able to walk from my house where I live to my job every day. My goal is to be able to do that. And we got three really common answers. It was Encinitas, California, Laguna Beach, California, and Santa Barbara, California. And as we were like narrowing it in, a friend of mine had just come back from a vacation here in Laguna Beach. And he said, I felt like I just left Utopia. So we were like, okay, pretty good pitch. We should go. So our first trip for like a experience to see where do we even want to go? Because that was our first thing. It's like, I could buy a practice anywhere. Where do we want that to be? We picked to fly here. And so my son was 6 months old. We flew here the first week of December. And it is a pretty magical place. You drive in through the mountains, these cliffs are up above you, there's homes at the top of the cliffs, and you just open up, and Main Street opens up like right up to the ocean. And just turned out like the week we came, there was this winter festival, which coming from Minnesota, then you walk down to the winter festival and there's like the beach sack Santa and they're making snow for all the kids and the kids are like freaking out. And we were like, this is, everybody's in their beanies and their scarves and me and Zach are in like light sweaters. And it was so adorable. And it kind of felt like that moment where you walk onto like your college campus for the first time. You're like, I want to go here. Like, this actually feels really good. That's like what it felt like for us. And I still have not been to Santa Barbara or Encinitas. Since that time, we were like, decision made. We will move here. And over that trip, every nap time, my kids would go down for nap. I would get in the car, a rental car, and drive to an open house. I went through like 10 open houses over the course of like 4 hours. I was like ripping around Laguna Beach. And the last open house I did, I met my friend Elaine. Then she was not my friend, but I met her that day. And I was like, every single realtor I'd go, they're like, hey, are you shopping? I was like, actually, I'm a dentist. I want to live here and work here, but I can't live here if I don't work here. If you know any dentists who are retiring, like, let me know. I would love to buy their practice. And a lot of them are like, oh, I don't. Or my dentist is in Newport, which is one town away. And I was like really focused on this vision, you know, like living here, working here. And finally, this lady was like, actually, you know what? I know a guy. He's like almost 80. I'll connect you. I was like, okay, I'll let you know when we're ready. Because I had been only being a dentist for like 3 months. So turn of the year comes. We get through the holiday season. She sends out this email like, hey, happy new year. I want to know what your goals are for 2024 and how I can help. Like it was totally like a boxed email, like a preset. But I was like, you know
Uh-huh.
what? I'm going to ask her if she can connect me to that guy. And so she's like, totally. I'll let you know when he responds. And now, like, he's almost 80. He's really old, right? And he doesn't do his computer a lot. Took her until like March. She's like, hey, he said he's interested. And I was like, really? I kind of given up on this. And in this time, I had been working on, like, you know, I was still doing my cosmetic society in Minnesota. I really, really connected with an amazing dentist in Richfield, Minnesota. And I was like, partnership with her is looking like really cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I have these two like paths kind of simultaneously running, like my easier one, like the one by me, or this
Mm-hmm.
one in California. And this deal is like, we're slowly chipping away. I fly out like 2, 3 more times. He's in no hurry to retire. We're moving through the process over like the whole course of 2024. And then we get really close. Like he and I agree on a number. The P&Ls look good. The banks give us like a soft approval. And then they said the only thing is we need to verify your lease. Like if the lease changes, we're not, you're so close. Like the numbers aren't great. It was a little 3-out practice, no room for expansion, like zero options. And I was like, okay, so the landlord hiked up the lease by like 2 grand a month. And when we finally confronted them, like, hey, this is going to happen, what's the lease look like? So the bank pulled out. And then I was like working all through September, October, November, getting the lease sorted out for this first practice. And finally, they come back around and they say, actually, it's okay. We'll go back to the old number. It's okay. You can have 7 years at that number and then we'll renegotiate it. So now I'm looking at this practice where it's like really tight margins. I have 7 years to either negotiate a better lease somewhere else or buy a building in Southern California, which is scary because that's like almost not going to happen. Right. And when I was like not ready to let go of the dream of like raising my kids, going to the beach every Saturday and Sunday, surfing with my kids, beach volleyball with my kids. And, you know, like I just could not let that dream die. So I was like, let's do it. Let's keep going. And then we get there. It's like December 20th. I was like, all right, we'll pick this back up on January 3rd. Everybody have a good holiday. Right. So now it's January 3rd, 2025. And the banks go, hey, it's a new fiscal quarter. We need new P&Ls. Like all the P&Ls that ended in September, we need new ones. We can't like finance on that. So the guy's getting his stuff together. He's working on his end of year stuff and we get it on February 1st. Our proposed close date is like March 31st. And we get these numbers on February 1st and there is no money. No money left in the practice. He had hired somebody else, like a secondary person for the front desk. He had cut back on his hours, so his income dropped. And the bank was like, is this the same? I mean, is this the same practice? And I was like, yeah, but I was shocked. And I was actually like way more scared. I mean, I have 7 years to take a practice from nothing to something in a 3-op clinic. This was the only person I could find in Laguna Beach willing to kind of talk with me. So I was flying out here to do the final walkthrough of the clinic on February 5th. We were listing our home for sale. Like we had to sell our home in Minnesota to do this move. And we were running open houses that entire weekend. And we get these numbers on February 1st. And I was just like, Zach, I mean, I don't know, Zach. Like, this might not happen. And he's like, well, let's just go have a good beach vacation. What else are we going to do? I mean, it's 2 days away. And I was like, okay, let's go. Let's look at rentals. And then we get out here and we were like, we had 38 showings or something on our house in Minneapolis. And I was like, Zach, I think our house is going to sell. Like, I think our house is going to sell for a lot more than what we thought. So we kind of were like, if we get a great offer and we find a good rental, let's just jump. And like, we knew it was such a small town that once we were here, I could like knock on doors at dental offices. I could maybe start looking more into the startup route if that's really what we wanted to do. But it was just so hard to make the transition from Minnesota and get something going. And we were like so far in it, I couldn't turn back. Once I was like, don't stay in the house, do the partnership. It was really when my heart was like, you can't, you gotta go. This is what you want to do. Like, and it was like between doing like this nice, awesome life in Minnesota, or taking like a massive risk and like leaving it all behind and coming to Laguna Beach and figuring it out from there. We were like, let's figure it out. And we know we can. So we sold our home via like finger sign. We literally signed it on a phone. We sold our home by signing on our phones. And are like taking off, flying back to Minnesota. We get the email, your house is sold. And we signed our lease for the cute little apartment we're in. And we're back home in Minnesota. And I was like, all right. I don't know. It was just like felt really peaceful. Like I actually wasn't scared. I don't know. It just was like we had committed, you know? And then I'm off work. I'd already quit my job. I'm off work and I wake up Friday morning and my banker and my lawyer had messaged me like 3 times, like, here is your practice that you've been looking for. Call this broker now. For the first time in 2 years since we started looking, a dental practice was for sale in Laguna Beach. And having just left, I got back on a plane. I'm in my pajamas. My husband worked from home. I like kicked down the door. I was like, are you in a meeting? And I was like, I need to fly back there. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I need to fly back today. There's a flight at 6 p.m. I need to be on it to go talk to this guy. And he's like, do you think you're going to buy it? I was like, I think I'm going to buy it. I want to buy it. And he won't sell it to me unless he meets me. And he's like, okay, then you got to go. So I bought a ticket. I packed a backpack. I was back in Laguna Beach, 4 days after just leaving. And I met with Dr. Parker. I walked through this practice, which is an amazing spot. I mean, we look over like the cliffs of Laguna, and he's just like a really, really good person. And he was looking for somebody who wanted to like live and work here. Turns out like a few years ago, he had gotten in a really bad motorcycle crash and he tried to sell the practice then. And all the people were scared to practice in Laguna Beach because it's a really competitive market. And so they wanted to like buy the charts and sell the equipment and move everybody to like their bigger practice, like outside of here in the suburbs. And he's like, that's not going to work. These people won't come. I mean, and that's not what these people want anyway. And so he like denied quite a few people. And I was like, we're living in North Laguna. I'm going to walk to work and I'm ready. I want my kids to graduate from this high school and take care of their friends and see my patients at the football games. Like, this is what I've been wanting. And so he accepted my offer the next day. So his practice was, under contractor, and, we were in escrow within 48 hours of him listing it. And I didn't negotiate on price. I mean, obviously, I didn't really care. I had enough faith that with you and I working together, we could take whatever we were given and go, we could do it. I knew we could. And it felt good too. I remember sending you like, this is my chance, because we had been working on the first deal together, to like analyzing the numbers, everything. And you were like, OMG, this looks so much better. And I was like, yeah, it does, right? Like, I can't believe it. And like, having just ended kind of this like year-long process, like fighting and fighting and fighting for something, like begging this guy to sell to me, honestly. I was desperate. Then this guy accepts my offer in a day, and he was ready to retire within like, he wanted to only do a 1 day transition, which I was like, okay, let's do it. And it all honestly was insane. And so we met in the middle of February. Our deal closed March 28th. And then I met the team the 30th, and I was practicing on the 31st. And then he was gone April 1st. Like, gone to Tennessee, gone. Like, he was not here. And I'm just like, yeah, still. And I was honest with the team, like, I've been working really hard towards this. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very committed to this. I have up to 20 years in this very unit right here. Like, this is what we're doing. This is our life. And I don't know, I think being like ready to go was so important. Mentally ready to go. I mean, obviously there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, a lot of administrative stuff you have to do to be ready to go, but if you're not mentally in a space to jump, like, you can't, what are you going to do? This was the first time I had a practice that come for sale in 3 years. Insane. I think Dr. Deacon Willis got the last practice that sold. And it was
Yeah.
also, and then it was me 3 years later. It's like
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, it
So
is. It is really interesting. It was interesting working together and talking through that, because looking at your first deal and everything, there was, I mean, things were tight, and then when the negotiations started to get a little bit challenging too, that was like,
yeah,
I remember having a conversation with. I still remember, because we were still traveling on the road. I think we were in California somewhere. I remember where I was because it was nighttime when I was talking to you on the phone, and you were like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I was just like, "Look, don't overthink it. What
yeah,
just." And I think there's certain times that you can make decisions based on data or specifics, and there's other times that you can just kind of say, "All right, what is my gut telling me? What do I want to do in this situation?" And I think you've been really good at identifying some of those times. And I mean, you said in the last episode, like, trusting your initial instincts a lot of times has served you pretty well. So it's
yeah.
cool to see all that play out, and here you are.
Yeah, I remember talking with you about that a lot, because my biggest fear in all of this is that I'm going to financially cripple my family, because it was never my goal to come here and be handcuffed to building a practice. That was never my goal. I mean, my goal is to be here and enjoy being here, right? And I can't do that from inside these four walls. And I remember that conversation too, just being like, I'm so afraid that in chasing my dream, I'm sacrificing everything else for my family. And that, I remember that's when I decided to walk away from the first practice, because it just is not worth it. Could I have done it? Yeah, we could have done it, but not my vision for my life, right? Like, it's just not been the plan, not how I see myself spending time. And like, in weighing the two options, I would rather come here and be like, if we didn't take out $1 million in a practice loan, my husband can afford, we're very lucky, my husband can afford to let us live here. And that's not the case for everybody. And so, like, I could have just even been jobless if we cut childcare costs out of our life. I could have just been jobless with my kids here in California, knocking on doors, being like, I want to buy your dental practice every day. You know what I mean? And I'm very, very fortunate that he is in a very motivated person, very driven in his career too, because that just would not have been on the table. And when I compare the two options, like, yes, of course, I want ownership. I want to open all these doors and I like being a dentist. Like, I think it's a really great career. I like working with my hands, I like helping people. And I would eventually need to get back to that. I know enough about myself. Like, I want to spend a lot of time with my kids, but I need like an identity outside of that too. But I like had the faith in my husband. I had the faith in myself that we could come here and do that. And it was more appealing to do it that way than to take the sliver of a chance I had in front of me, knowing how much work would come out of it. I mean, my daughter, let's say we did do that. My daughter would be 11 and I will just be like probably coming out of the trenches, like getting my bigger space because I at least was 7 years. It just is like, was I really willing to spend until she was 11 grinding in a
Right.
practice with nowhere to go? And the answer was no. So, I am grateful every day. My whole team knows that story too. They all know that. Like, I'm not really like shy about it because it's also a very small town, and I was really worried that like people would, catch wind that I was like working on something and pivoted. But I felt like, even still, I couldn't do that to my family. And that was where I drew the line for sure. And my kids are super happy here, which is
Yeah.
great. So in
Yeah.
like uh my first 6 months were a trip, but I didn't see them a lot for the last 6 months, which was really hard. But we're really like this 6 month mark we're hitting on November 1st. I can feel such a weight coming off the constant meeting new people and getting through that season feels really good. I mean, it's very exciting to turn that corner. It's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. The first 6 months is a lot because you know how important the first impression is. And so it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, when you get into like the normal flow of things where maybe you have like one or two new patients per day and like you can kind of like put on an extra little pizzazz during those interactions, that's doable. But when every single patient is a new patient, it's your first time meeting them and you're trying to help them feel good about you as their provider and everything. Yeah, it takes
Yes.
definitely a lot of extra energy.
It's a lot of work, and your team doesn't know what you want. They want you to be happy, but they don't know what you want. So when you walk in the door, they don't know what they have supposed to have done already or how much talking they should do versus you should do. So there's also this team dynamic. Now that got sorted out probably within our first month because just repetition. There's also that awkwardness, like, where do you go in the room? And then finally you get the dance, like, oh, they stand up and go here and you go there and introduce yourself. And they know the facts you want about their teeth. They don't know what's important or not important, but eventually they get what you're looking for. And that's been beyond nice. And my hygienist, I'm so lucky. One of my hygienists is really, really good at teeing me up on the clinical, and the other is really, really good at teeing me in on the personal. And I don't really, so far I haven't even coached them on that, but just being so grateful that they tee me in somehow, it's just like so great. So one room I always talk about personal stuff first, and then, I go, all right, I got to know you. Let me get to know your teeth. And then we kind of jump in, or the other one kind of starts on the clinical stuff, and then it actually is really great because you kind of get this, like, I like it when I get to be the one being the people person, and like the hygienist is like the tooth person. I think that that's like the best dynamic to have. So she gives me the lowdown on the teeth, and I go, great. That's so amazing. Thank you, Tony. I'm definitely going to check on that tooth. Now I wanted to ask you, like, what's important to you? Or like, does that bothering you, that tooth she mentioned? And then we can kind of flow into more of the patient, which is great. I think the patient notices that you want to hear about them. And working with what you've got is like super important in your first month or two, for sure. But
Definitely.
yeah. And, when I bought the practice, it was 3 ops, and they had one room specifically dedicated to x-rays, x-rays only. There's no like suction in the room, like nothing. And in our first month, even, we were so booked. I'm like so grateful. We were so busy, but we had like multiple emergencies and there was nowhere to put them. I mean, and I got into this business to help people. So somebody calls me and says, my front tooth just fell out. My crown is out in my hand. And I go, I don't know where to put you. It's like a little bit frustrating as an owner, but also kind of embarrassing, right? So I just said, come in, sit in the x-ray chair and wait for me. And then like in the 5 seconds that I have, we'll turn a room and get you in and re-cement it. But it was very stressful. So I made the decision with by like week 3, I was building the 4th op this summer. And that was another point where my husband's like, what's the ROI? And I didn't have actually good numbers for him. But I said, the investment's pretty small. In theory, I should be able to like 1.5, 1.75 times my production per day. Because you still are only one person. It's unreasonable to expect you're going to double your production right away. But I was like, just even being able to teeter back and forth, I can get a lot more done in a day. It's going to be paid off in a year. And so it's super important to get that done right away, which that decision cascaded into a lot of other decisions. So you you never make a decision in a silo. Like everything interferes with something else. So once I made the decision to take away the x-ray room, my paper chart practice had to go to a computer practice because everybody needed to be able to take digital x-rays in their rooms, which means they needed to learn the computer. And that was probably one of the more scary things for me, was to ask them all to learn that. And they've taken it in stride. I said, let's just like one piece at a time. We just need to learn how to do the digital x-rays in your room. And that's all they've been responsible for since we finished the first remodel. But yeah, I mean, right leading up to that decision, I think I really struggled with prioritizing because so many things happened. So I bought the practice basically April 1st. Our one and only x-ray machine broke the end of May. So we had no way to take x-rays for all of June. And then our main computer, our one and only computer that ran the scheduling collections, broke like that same week. And I was already working on like the long-term fixes for these problems, getting everybody their computers, getting a new main computer that was connected to the cloud so we didn't have to worry about this one 15-year-old computer shutting down one day. And it was really hard for me to be working on these big, big projects, like this big construction project, and every day fighting like these battles against the current x-ray machine, against the current computer, and then being like, fix it. And I'm like, I don't even want to spend the time fixing it. I'm replacing it in 3 weeks. Like, why couldn't it just last 3 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't get a choice, right? You don't know when something's going to break or fail. So that was probably like June, dealing with all of the equipment failure. Same time, actually, our cavitrons broke. Both of them broke and were unrepairable. And I had my eye on this hygiene equipment, but I told them, like, we'll get you guys upgraded hygiene equipment in like 6 to 9 months, so we can just like get through this phase, and then you guys get new equipment and we can learn that then. But then their hygiene equipment all broke, so they've been hand scaling all summer, and I got them new ones, but they've been too in the weeds with learning the new computer to learn the new hygiene equipment. So it's just been like every step has been tough, and if you're hand scaling every patient, it's a lot of work and you run late. I mean, it takes a long time. So That was my June. And then in July, my one and only front desk person, we just got the brand new computers, the brand new computer system. And so we're all learning it. And she got really sick, like an intestinal problem. And so she was like hospitalized and was gone for a week. And it was like the hardest week of her life. She'll say that. And I say that was the hardest week of my life too so far. No front desk person. I mean, I would get out of a filling and have like 14 voicemails. I didn't even know how to check the voicemail, Derek. I had to call her. She was in the hospital. I had to be like, how do I check the voicemail? I
Yeah.
felt like such a burden. And that was like a full blown breaking point for me. You know, I was like, we need redundancy. Everybody's getting cross trained. I need team meetings for sure. It was horrible. And I was like so embarrassed. You know, you feel like you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do, right? But she's a really amazing employee. And I had so many other things going wrong. I just let her do her thing. And I feel like in hindsight, I like should have been learning. I don't know what I should have been doing, but I was like learning it as she was already out of the office. And that was, yeah, maybe not smart, but also, I don't know, it's hard to like, you think you're going to do something so perfect. You think you're going to like crush every step. And I was crushing, I would say I was doing pretty good at coping with like the immediate problems in front of me. And so, but that was just taking up all of my time. I wasn't able to be looking forward yet and like training for the future. And so when she was out, it was an immediate problem. And I like needed to figure it out right then. Um, and, you know, patients understood. I called them and just said, you know, she's out sick. She's not doing well. I'm handling the scheduling and things like that. And they were kind, which is sweet. But yeah, I mean, learning how to like collect payment. I didn't even know how to send a claim to insurance. Like, so she came back unfortunately from being so sick, and I was like, "You have a week's worth of claims. I should learn how to do this." She was like, "Yeah." So we sat down and I learned how to do it. Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah. I mean, the front desk duties are something that pretty much every dentist doesn't understand super well. And uh, luckily, there are options as far as like temporarily outsourcing some things at times. But it is one of those things that when it comes up, you have to learn how to deal with it. There's usually at some point during our first year, we work on creating like basically like a training manual, like going through, take pictures, screenshots of what you do, the simple tasks. And that is something that allows other people to do things in a pinch. Um,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
Well, and I think too, like my team has been pretty. I mean, they've been overwhelmed just with the changes, right? I mean, just even introducing me to every single person, losing their cavitrons, learning a new x-ray system. I say overwhelmed. They are taking it so well. I really mean that. But I feel uncomfortable asking them to now learn the front desk duties. So we have redundancy. I feel like there's this balance of being like, I've already asked so much. How much more can I layer on? And the reality is like I need to make a formulated plan, like planning out from priority number one. This is the most important thing for my hygienist to learn at a team meeting, scheduling the team meeting in the schedule. Because it's also really hard to look at your schedule and when you have loans to pay and all your equipment just broke and be like, I'm going to shut down production for an afternoon. Like that was actually a really scary decision to make, even though I knew I needed to do it. Going in and actually blocking the time, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, oh my God, how am I gonna afford all this. But the reality is that time has been so good. And so then now what has happened is like now that we've been able to go through so much as a team, they've actually come to me and said what they want to learn because they see the pain points in the clinic. So like our October meeting, um, our September meeting was like mission and vision for the practice and for my life because it was the first time we were able to block time in the schedule. And it was a really helpful and powerful meeting. And we went through the new patient experience. We walked through, and I just asked everybody, what would you change? What looks messy? What feels like it doesn't reflect who we are anymore? They got really into it, took notes, and we're making the changes, which feels really good. When we walked out of our second meeting in September, which was review, they requested what they wanted the October meeting to be about. And it was learning more about Oryx so that if somebody's out, we can all help each other out more. And they requested it. So I was like, this is pretty incredible that they're helping guide and are invested in learning. And I think giving them the opportunity to sit down and learn it, being like, hey, here's our team meeting time. Here's like a shorter team meeting with admin time. Now they feel like comfortable being like, I actually want to learn this, because they also don't want to be a burden. If you have a full schedule and they're asking you to work a Friday to learn it, they don't feel like they're placed to ask you to work more to teach them. So just carving the time out was really helpful for them to feel comfortable to ask,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
really great.
I want you to talk a little bit about two things. One is I want you to talk a little bit about finding the balance behind like leading and pushing for something versus listening.
Yeah.
And then I want you to talk also about how you talked with your team about why you became a dentist versus why you became an owner.
Yeah. So, like, for working with my team, and I felt very much in the beginning like I needed them more than they needed me. Because I was like the newbie, right? Like I needed them to teach me things. I needed to be more flexible and like try to work with them so I didn't like uproot their whole system. And I don't remember exactly when it flipped, but I remember one day, it was about 6 weeks in, I had so much friction. Like I was like, I cannot keep running 15 minutes behind because you guys want to like do all of these things in an appointment. And because by the end of our morning, we are an hour behind. Like this is so uncomfortable for me that I didn't snap, but it like something in me broke. And I was like, I have to start giving feedback. I can't just indefinitely let my team do what they've always done. It was way too uncomfortable and beyond, like I felt like it was so rude to our patients to leave them hanging. And obviously a horrible first impression, even though they said like John was always late. John would get to people when he would get to people. I was like, okay, that's not for me. Like I cannot do that. So I think that was the first time I even thought of the idea to give feedback, was seriously like 6 weeks in, and could not do it anymore. And I remember talking with you and being like, but their cabochons just broke and the x-ray machine just broke. And like, how can I ask them to be on time when I've given them none of the tools to be successful? Like all of their auxiliary equipment is out of the picture right now. And you were like, it doesn't have to be this or that. It's like you don't need to do this, doesn't need to be like step one, step two. This can be more like laterally we are pulling all these levers to try to get things back on track. All of them will help. And that was a really big shift for my mindset because I felt like, and maybe it was a little bit of a defense mechanism, but I felt like if I went into a conversation and I was like, we're running behind, I felt like I needed to make sure I was doing everything I could possibly do to make sure we weren't running behind first. But it's not always possible. And so that was our first time we had a conversation. So 6 weeks in, this is when all this stuff is breaking in May, end of May. And We've been behind a lot. So that's when I started coaching them on, if they come in and they have a lot of stuff on their teeth, we need to be preparing them at the beginning of the appointment. They need to come back for a second appointment because we still have to end on time to get the next patient in the door. And they started doing that. And we talked a lot about diagnosing like perio. We weren't really diagnosing perio before. And they would always kind of wait to do their data collection till the end of the appointment. And I did that for the first 6 weeks, but it just was so hard. I mean, you would perio chart and then you have to turn around and be like, you have periodontal disease. Congrats. Like there was no buffer time. There was like nothing to prepare the patient. So the other thing we coach them on is like all data collection has to start at the beginning of the appointment. If you're perio charting, you perio chart. If you're getting x-rays, you get x-rays. That way you as hygienists have time to talk to them about what they have going on. But it also gives me an extra half hour to make a diagnosis and prepare how I want to tell a patient I've never met before what they have going on. And I had not given them that advice yet. And I don't know if without us kind of talking through all the ways we could fix something and moving forward in all of them is okay if I would have. I felt very strongly I needed to be the leader and be like, I'm going to solve by doing this first and then we'll do this. But it was better in the end to have all of us contributing to the goal. And recently, like, it's all started to click. So, because it didn't click right away. I mean, it was hard for them to get used to those conversations. It was hard for them to find time and jump right into x-rays and like find their segues for that stuff with their patients. So right now, after 3 months of working with like data collection at the beginning and setting people up that they might have to come back for a second visit, we're now getting to the point where like we're more consistently running on time and they still haven't even really been able to use their new equipment. It's more from the advice, the training that got that to start happening, which is really nice because I didn't want to scare them away. I didn't want to be the boss that comes in and like tells them this is how it has to be. And our September meetings when it really like I think clicked because we had a really good conversation about running behind and we listed out probably 6 or 7 things that are putting us behind. Running our sterile, not having the equipment, patients coming in late, us not having charts pulled on time, people meeting me for the first time is obviously a big thing, making us late. And we didn't have enough lead vests. You still have to use lead vests in California. I was like, that's such an easy fix. Like, I will just buy one on eBay. But it's like without having everybody throw out their pain points, and I'm just thinking, oh, it's because they don't have cavitrons, which was like not even the reason. It was like all these other factors. We wouldn't probably be as far to being on time as we currently are, which is great. And I had another example. I really want my team taking FMXs. And I thought the reason one of my hygienists was not taking FMXs was because it was a new computer software or because we were always running late. Lo and behold, in California, I did not know this. You have to wear dosimeters in California for the x-ray units, and they never did because they were able to hide behind a wall. And now we have the in-op ones, the nomads. And so she was like, I want to know I'm not getting radiated before I start taking FMXs on every single patient. I was like, easy. That is so easy for me to fix. I'm happy to do that. And that's not what I thought the reason was. I probably would have never come to that conclusion. So I think it does take rapport to come up with like being collaborative, but you can't have rapport if you don't ask the question. So building the time to ask the question was super important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've had a lot of conversations around this. And I remember one particular one where I was like kind of encouraging you, kind of saying, hey, maybe you need to be a little bit more firm in your
Yeah.
expectations and push the team. And you were like, well, but I am like, I've done this and this and this. And so now I'm thinking I may need to back off. And so, we had a conversation about it. And the thing that's so interesting is this leadership is not a one and done. It's not this situation where it's like, okay, the last piece to the puzzle, I am now like an ideal leader. It's
Right.
you have different employees. Even if your employees are the same, you have different patients. The day is different. Everybody's moods are different. The conversation or the situation is a little bit different. So the important part is not always calling the right shot. It's being able to learn, when do I ask more questions and learn versus when do I say, okay, here's the direction that we're going to go. If everybody can get on board, let's come together. We may not all agree 100% on this, but let's come together, move forward. And, a week from today, we can reconvene and we can discuss and we'll talk through it again. So it's just always this process of, there's this spectrum of how you can proceed in every situation. And if you're always pushing the same button, you're probably not getting great results. So it's something that you continue to test and try out in every situation.
For sure. And I think the objective is super important. So, like, kind of at our first meeting, getting people to understand the goal. I don't necessarily care as much how we get there. I just want to achieve the goal as a team, right? So, the problem was we were late, and there was like a zillion ways we could help push that needle forward. And so now we're working on like 10 of them at once, and we've actually seen some great results. But there's bigger goals in the dental practice. And like for me, I mean, most people have a job so that they can eventually retire. I think that's like a 99% of people and a lot of my employees. But like when I went through with my team, as you alluded to before, like I made a clear delineation of like why I became a dentist and why I come here every day and why I treat patients every day versus why I became a practice owner. And I made very clear to them that those are two different jobs and have two different objectives for me. That way, I just thought it was a good way for them to understand like when I'm treating a patient, this is my mindset. And when I'm making decisions for the practice, this is my mindset. It's not going to be the same train of thought. And, like I went through a lot of the things that we discuss in the TLP Academy, like what does my ideal day look like? Like, what does my ideal patient look like? Like all of these things. I said, this is why I became a dentist, is to have like a cozy, comfortable, high-end dental clinic people like to be. Like I don't want to be pretentious. I don't care to be the most high tech. I just wanted to do like really solid work and make people feel really comfortable getting that work done here. Those are my like two biggest goals. And then when I said, now, why did I decide to own a clinic? Because I could do that work like almost anywhere. I said I became a practice owner because it gave me the flexibility to spend quality time with my kids. Yes, I want a lot of time with my kids, but I don't want to be with my kids constantly thinking I should be doing another filling right now. I should be doing another crown right now. I need the financial freedom as well. I cannot feel guilty spending time with them. And ownership gives me that balance. I can work as much as I need to work in the season of life that I'm in while also being able to be with my kids and enjoy it. And so, and they know that. And I said, we're already making changes to the schedule. Looking 6 months ahead, we blocked time for team meetings. We blocked time for admin time. I made Monday afternoons no exam cleanings. If they're not getting an exam, like they're a more frequent recall, they have to go on Monday afternoons. And my scheduler's all on board with that. And my hygienists are all on board with that because they understand I'm using that Monday afternoon to like go home, cook a meal with my family, and see them. Like that's not my goal, isn't to like that, it's not like some crazy goal. It's just to like do that. And I said, I even have written out in my book like how the schedule might change when both my kids are in full-time school. Like right now, I like working the longer days and 3 days a week, but there might come a time if they're really active in sports or something, I need 5 days that are shorter. And I will do that if that's what that means, so that I can be with my kids. And even though most of my team, like it's like 50-50 and who's moms and like if they have active kids, some have grown kids or some don't have grandkids yet. Like everybody has different family needs right now, but I think they all understand that that's my goal. And it's been awesome since then. And even just my favorite part about having team meetings is like the 10 minutes before you start and like the 10 minutes after you finish. Like my team is learning things about each other that feel so simple, but I know that it's helping them enjoy work more. Like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're taking our camper. You have a camper? I have a camper. We go and do this. Like, I know that those connections that they're able to make, like before and after, help them feel cozier here. I want my team to feel cozy. I asked them at the last team meeting to bring in a picture of like recent travels or their families to keep in their operatories. And I said, whatever you feel comfortable talking about. If you don't want to talk about, like, if you put up a family photo, but you don't really want to talk about your mom, like, don't bring that. But I just want people to see that we're like alive and outside of here. Like, we're not just teeth cleaners and tooth drillers. Like, we're real people. And I said, everybody give me a couple of weekends that are important to you to have off. If that's your birthday or Easter, like, just send me a couple because we have extra time to take off next year. I've put what I needed down and I want to make sure we like get you guys where you want to go. They said they've never had an employer ask them for feedback on vacation days. And, I ended my meeting talking about mission and vision for my life with if there's something I can do to help you achieve your goals, whether that's retirement or a good work day. We spend a lot of time here. So I want to make sure you're enjoying it. And that's when we got into the we run late conversation because they said we really like getting our lunch. And I said, well, awesome. Let's figure out how we can do that.
I think that's so incredible. I mean, especially now where the last few years employee retention is very difficult and hiring is really
Yeah.
challenging. So getting a really good team in place is tough. If everyone listened to what you just said the last minute, that would be huge. Any employee where their boss says, "Hey, what are your goals?" And not just goals like, "What are your goals working in this practice?" but "What are your life goals? Where do you want to get?" You can share with me if you'd like, and I'd love to help you.
Yeah.
You you have talked about how one of your employees has shared some, and you're going to meet with them one on one to just talk about their goals and see how can we make this work in this practice. How can this help
Yeah.
you get to where you want to be? I think
Yeah.
if that happened, employees would not go anywhere. That's such a rare experience from
Yeah.
an employee perspective. So kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow. She's debating between nursing school and like going that route and staying in dental and what like her income goals are. And she's younger, she has a long career ahead of her. And we've talked about if she decides to not go nursing route, she wants to go to hygiene or maybe office management, like what our income would look like at our clinic or a tuition payback program. So, like, if I commit to XYZ in hygiene tuition, how many years I'd want after she graduated. So that she doesn't have to incur a whole bunch of debt to go. And we're going to meet tomorrow and talk about it. And I love her. And if she decides nursing school is what she just wants to do. I'm not going to try to convince her not to go to nursing school. Um, I just want to make sure she knows going forward what I can do to help. Same with all my new hires that I've done. They want my new other assistant. She really wants a great work life balance. She ends a half hour earlier than everybody else, but she also gets here an hour earlier because that works for her life and it works for our clinic. So I'm like happy to do that stuff. Same assistant, she has to get her daughter on the bus. So we just started our first appointment of the day 15 minutes later, which is like no big deal. We shortened our lunch by 15 minutes. And now she's able to like get her daughter on the bus, come here, set up her rooms, feel ready for the day. And then the whole morning just feels so much better because we have all our trays ready and it just flows instead of saying we're starting at 8 no matter what and then you feel behind anyway the whole morning. So that's been really, really good. And then I've also had a conversation with my current front desk person who is like the only person trained. And in that, I said, I think we need some, redundancy. And I think you might need like some manpower. And we talked about like, do you want to become more of an office manager and get paid more or stay where you are but maybe we have to get you like a virtual assistant to run insurance claims behind the scenes, or we have to get you something. But I have to know if you're upwardly moving or not so I can make that decision. And she was honest with me and she just said, I like working with the patients. I don't really want to be like paying bills or, running morning huddle. I don't really want to be doing that. And so we're moving forward in a different way. But I love her. She's good at her job and there's other options. But yeah, I think there was a study done that if you have a best friend at work, you're like way less likely to quit. So if you give your team time to bond in other ways outside of problem solving, clinical issues, like they will enjoy work a lot more and it'll be harder for them to go and they'll be more likely to come to you to solve a problem in the future because they don't want to leave. They'd rather just solve the problem with you. And that is so, so important. And I've had to hire two assistants. You mentioned hiring. Do not hire based off of skills alone. It's a waste of your time. You need to be hiring based off attitude. And if you don't think you can train them, then you need to start working on that. Because if you only hire people that have the exact skills you're looking for, when you decide you're ready to take an extra day off and your vision for your life changes and your team isn't trainable, you are going to have a tough time turning that boat around. So make sure you get people that are excited about your vision for your dental practice, for your patients, your vision for your life, and they are there for the attitude because then you can help the entire ship go in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, very well said. It's cool for me to almost take like the back seat and hear you be able to share all of the principles that I think are so great. I think one thing that I was thinking about from last episode where you talked about like one of your darkest times, you learned to not hide things and to be open, to be transparent, to be vulnerable. And I can hear that now coming out in ownership where you're all of this conversation around talking about the issues and the concerns together as a team, talking about
Yeah.
your vision, where you want to go, asking for your team's vision. That's the other thought that comes to me when you're talking about your employees coming to you with issues, or even in that situation, like let's say that your employee decides she does want to go to nursing school. How would the approach be different if you didn't have a really open relationship and communicate? It's likely that she would probably make a lot of those decisions on her own. And when she got to that point, she gave her traditional 2 week notice, I'm going to nursing school, versus
Right.
like this whole experience, like you communicate openly. You're likely, if she decides, you're going to have like months of time to search. And so there's, and the relationship is just going to be so much more fulfilling on both ends. It's like, it's
Yeah.
so much more enjoyable to work for a boss that is doing the things that you're doing. So I applaud you for that.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the people part, like the leadership part, I learned a lot in my marketing job. I mean, I led teams and I created the internship program at the company. Like I got really good experience being a leader on a much smaller scale. It wasn't my company. It's not quite the same. I mean, leading your team, the conversations feel a lot more weighty. Like it just means a
Yes.
lot more when it's your business and you feel like a pressure to get it right, but like letting go of that and letting your team see you're human, I think is really important. And in that way, they understand that you care about them too, right? Like you don't want them to feel like they're getting left behind or they're following your path. And so I think when I was coaching peers or it wasn't my company, I would just say what I thought because what do I have to lose? But now that I'm in charge, it was like letting go a little bit of that. It's not ego. For me, it was more fear that if I say what I need or what I want, my whole business falls apart. That's the underlying fear in all of this. And letting that come and go and then having the conversation openly has been the best way to go. It's not that the fear went away, but if you go into the conversation earnestly without an objective, your employees feel that. Like they know, they're not dumb. They know when you have like a greater outcome involved, right? They know. So just if you have a goal, be honest. If you don't have a goal, have an open discussion because they'll be able to read you like a book either way.
Yep. Yeah, very
Mm-hmm.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that conversation because well, we were talking about leading and thinking through those types of process, and you were talking about how in your associateship it was so easy because you had nothing to lose, and
Right.
so we almost had to like flip back to that old mindset in a little bit of a way, mainly by just saying by redefining your job as the leader. Your job as the
Yes.
leader is not to call the shots right 100% of the
Right.
time. It's to be able to listen and to decide when to make a decision and move forward. It doesn't mean that you get it
Yes.
right, but it means that you've made the decision, you take responsibility for it, and you move forward. And if something comes up, then you adapt again and you pivot. So I
And I think that was really helpful because the ability to pivot, sometimes I forgot about like, you don't have to stand your ground and be like, this is what I decide and we're never going to change. Like, I have almost a 20-year long lease. I don't need to be perfect tomorrow. I have years and years to perfect this system. I want to keep moving forward. I have a lot of energy. I was really burnt out in July. Felt like I turned a corner in August and September with my team and starting to have these team meetings. But then I kind of needed to let my brain chill for a minute. I actually like watched movies at night. I haven't really been like pushing the needle forward and doing a ton of self-help books or anything recently. I just have been like working in the business, being with my family, doing something fun. And now that like kind of like my bandwidth, the workload has kind of fallen and I let go of that pressure of like, you have to nail this. You have to be perfect. There's that anxiety led depression that's immobilizing, right? Like you feel like you
uh-huh.
can't do anything. It's okay. Like you have a long time. Just keep ticking away. What is one thing you can do? And what's the most important thing you can do? And then do it and then wait. And when it gets easy again, do another thing. And for me, that's happening like every 4 weeks. Our team is like, they're so smart. They're just like every 4 weeks, they're ready for a new challenge. They're coming to me. Can we talk about this at team meeting? It's like, yeah, let's do it. But like, you kind of need to like go through these cycles. It's not always perfect, but if you like, I personally cannot stay like up here indefinitely. It feels impossible, and it is impossible. So being able to feel like the turn of the tide and like taking that breather and sitting in that for a few weeks and then being like, all right, let's add this piece and then work on that.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thank you so much. I think it's been a lot of fun to kind of talk through things. Before we wrap up, is there any like one like to anyone that is on the fence as far as ownership, wondering, can I make this work with my lifestyle or, my goals? Like, I kind of want to do this. I'm not sure if I can make it fit. Like, what advice would you give?
I think like the first piece of the puzzle for all of this is in the like first section of TLP Academy, the self-reflection and self-assuredness. When my first practice deal fell apart, I pulled out my notebook that I had worked on TLP Academy and I cried because at the very top it said, "You will not give up," which is what you guys make everybody write at the top of the mission and vision. And I'm still getting a little teary eyed. But if you don't go through the process of self reflection and self assuredness that you can get there, you never will because you don't even know what you're looking for. So you'll never see it. That would be like everybody's step one. And it took me 2.5 years to even get to start on my dream, right? Like I'm not even achieving it yet. I'm trying every day to find the balance. But if you don't have that reflection and belief, that is step one. So start there, know what you're going for, and why you want it, and it will come because you'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, if anyone listening wants to reach out or ask you a question, is there a way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, you should email me. It's drdale.dentistry@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. I'll put
And
your email in the show notes too.
that would be great. I would love to talk with anybody, especially if you are heading down this path. It's nice to have a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And reach out to TLP because they will help. So it's Derek at thelifestylepractice.com. Send
Excellent.
them an email.
I don't even need to say anything. We'll see you guys
All
next
right.
time.
All right. Bye.